The young moose ran like everything behind him had teeth. His hooves tore across the frozen pasture edge, snow exploding under each desperate stride. Breath burst from him in white gasps. Behind him, wolves, 6 of them, low and silent, closing in with the cold precision of animals who knew he was alone. He had followed his mother's tracks through the birches until they vanished into the night. Now there was nothing ahead of him but open ground and a fence he couldn't stop for. Barbed wire flashed. He hit it at full speed. Metal screamed. The wire snapped. The moose tumbled into a cow pasture, legs flailing, the world flipping sideways as the herd exploded in panic around him. Cows scattered in every direction. Except one. A lone heifer stood her ground, breath steaming in the dawn cold, staring at the injured calf as the wolves gathered at the broken fence behind him. One of the cows, Daisy, stood rooted, head low, stance steady as if weighing this wild stranger. Her breath fumed in slow, deliberate streams as she watched him crash into the snow. Behind her, the others wavered, looking to her for direction. The wolves stopped at the snapped wire, pacing, snarling. But Daisy did not flinch. The smell of cattle, the silhouette of barns, human territory, held the wolves back for a single heartbeat. But a heartbeat was enough. The moose tried to rise, legs trembling violently. He collapsed again, front knees buckling, a thin cry tearing loose. Blood darkened the snow along his flank where the fence had ripped him open. Panic coiled inside him, urging him to move, run and hide, anything but lie there exposed. Daisy stepped forward, slow and measured, until her nose touched his coat. He flinched, then stilled, as if grounding himself on her calm. The herd circled back, forming a loose ring, following Daisy's lead, shielding him from the cold gaze of the wolves. From the porch, Ruth Carter froze with a mug suspended halfway to her lips. She had been awake since dawn. Old grief had a way of keeping her company, and she knew instantly that something was wrong. Tom stepped out behind her, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Another stray?" he murmured. But when he saw Ruth's expression, tight, worried, his voice softened. They crossed the yard and slipped through the gate, 2 quiet shapes in the morning light. Ruth's chest tightened at the sight of him, torn flank, trembling breath, terror flickering in his eyes. He looked heartbreakingly small. She crouched, easing a handful of hay forward. He hesitated, nostrils quivering, then leaned down and ate, shaky in careful bites. Tom watched Ruth's hands tremble. He knew the story she rarely spoke of, the fawn she couldn't save years before. He placed a steady hand on her back. "Let's call the wildlife office," he said softly. The ranger's voice crackled through the radio. If the moose wasn't aggressive, let him rest. Let nature do its work. Interference would only worsen things. So they let him stay. Days opened slowly. The moose learned the farm's rhythm, the scrape of troughs, the soft thunder of hooves, Daisy leading him to the last patch of winter grass. When she walked, he followed. When the wind cut hard at night, he curled against her warmth. Fear loosened its grip on him, replaced by something softer. The wound on his shoulder knitted into a pale stripe. He grew broader, his steps more sure. Sometimes he made little grunts of contentment, sounds the cows answered with low humming breaths. He wasn't a cow, but he was no longer just wild either. He had found a place between. One night, the wolves returned. Ruth woke to a long hollow cry rolling over the ridge, a sound that prickled her skin. She grabbed a flashlight and hurried outside. Frost cracked beneath her boots. In the pasture, the herd stood tight. At the front, the moose braced his legs, chest steaming. Yellow eyes flickered between the birches, wolves pacing, circling, testing the line. One wolf stepped forward, testing the boundary, leaning into the dark air. The moose tensed, half lowering his head, wanting to charge, wanting to run. His breath came in sharp bursts. Then Daisy moved. She pressed her forehead into his shoulder, a firm, grounding touch. Her calm rippled through him. His muscles loosened. His breath steadied. The wolves held for a moment longer, then slid back into the trees, swallowed by darkness. Belonging, Ruth realized, wasn't just comfort. It was courage borrowed from another. Peace didn't last. One afternoon, a neighbor slowed his truck along the fence line, phone raised before Ruth even noticed. He snapped a quick picture, Daisy and the moose grazing shoulder to shoulder, and drove off without a word. By nightfall, that photo was online. By morning, people were swarming the gravel road, vans, tripods, shouting children, flashes like lightning. The noise rattled the herd. Daisy paced in tight, anxious circles whenever strangers leaned over the fence, calling to the moose, coaxing, reaching. Tom watched this too, jaw tight. "This can't go on," he muttered. Ruth's heart sank. Shelter had its limits. She knew that better than most. A week later, a state wildlife truck pulled in. 2 officers stepped out, gentle, apologetic, but carrying the weight of rules Ruth knew they couldn't break. He hesitated, uncertain, heart pulled between 2 worlds. For the first time since he crashed into the pasture, his pause wasn't fear. It was choice. Slowly, he stepped toward the trees. Ruth gripped the gatepost until her knuckles went white. Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to call out, wanted to pull him back. But she stayed silent. 1 step. Another. Then he disappeared between the pale birch trunks, the sound of his movement fading into the wind. Daisy pressed her forehead against the fence, a soft, aching gesture that hollowed Ruth's chest. Tom stepped beside her, quiet, sharing the grief without words. The gate closed with a sound like a sigh. Winter thinned. Snow retreated. The field softened back to green. Then, one fog-wrapped morning, Ruth heard the cows lowing and stepped outside. Through the mist stood a tall shape just beyond the fence, antlers budding velvet, coat shining gold in the new light. The moose. Older, wilder, beautiful. He stepped forward, and Daisy met him at the wire. They touched noses, breath mingling in a warm, familiar cloud. A memory made physical. Ruth laughed, the sound trembling into a soft sob. "You came back," she whispered. It wasn't ownership. It was gratitude, for having been trusted with something rare. People online called it viral. Adorable. Unbelievable. Ruth knew better. Mercy wasn't strange. It was the herd that circled. The heifer that stayed. The woman who opened a gate even when it hurt. And on the morning he returned for good, the moose paused at the fence, Daisy waiting. She nudged his muzzle once, breath on breath through wire, the same white steam rising between them that had risen the first morning he fell into their lives. Then he turned, antlers high, and walked back into the birch line. Ruth wiped her eyes. The pasture was quiet again. He had come to them running from fear. And he left carrying only love.